Hey, welcome to the next episode of what am I calling this? Work in progress. Work in progress. So today I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do some optimization of a website following one of the FutureSync Conference 2020 talks. An amazing talk by a woman called Natalia Vanacek. Now, Natalia's talk was focused around how us as technologists can have a real impact on climate change, and specifically how different choices that we make in terms of our design and technical decisions as developers can have a huge impact on global climate change efforts. Now, as part of our talk, a few months before the event, we agreed that Natalia would go through the FutureSync website and use it as an example of a starting point as to how to do this, and that over the course of the following few months we would optimize the website using some suggestions from her, and then we could Natalia could contrast the before and after during the event. Now, unfortunately, because of world events that happened all the way through 2020, certainly up until this point in May, we didn't actually get to do that. Normally there's a lull sort of between 4 and 2 weeks before a conference where everything's been front loaded and you're just waiting for the final chunk of stuff to happen. And that was the lull where we were going to sit down and we were going to make these changes so that Natalia could finish off her talk. Now, because of world events, we didn't get that lull. In fact, that was the time period during which we were pivoting the conference to be an online event. So we didn't actually get to go around and do this, but sticking to our word, Natalia used our website as an example. Now, we didn't score very well on that, and it is something that I'm quite ashamed of as a technologist. So in terms of the conference, we use Plymouth University because it's in the heart of the city centre and is a 2-minute walk from the train station, and we actively encourage people to take the train. We source all our food locally to reduce food miles. We have a higher proportion of vegan and vegetarian food than we do against meat and fish to help contribute against it, and we do lots of tiny little tweaks like that in order to reduce our footprint, but we've never really measured it in any meaningful way, and that is something that we were planning to do moving forward, using this year as a benchmark. So today I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do some optimizations on that website using the information that Natalia gave in her talk. In order to facilitate this, I've created a copy of the website as it was the morning of the conference, which you can see here. I've made one change so that there's no confusion. But this is the website as it is. Now, it's a pretty bog standard website in terms of conferences. You get lots of logos, you get lots of images, you get lots of long pieces of content. I wasn't expecting that to work. As you can see, it is a very contained website. The website as it was at the time was a PHP website, and everything was built at runtime, and all of the individual speaker pages were generated at that point. But for this, I've created a static version of the site so that it's easier for us to play with and to see the results and to measure it. So that static website has been added to GitHub, and then we've deployed it to Netlify, which is a super nice platform for static websites, and then we can run the test on it. And as you can see, this web page is dirtier than 98% of other web pages tested, which is not great. It's important to note at this point that this website was built while it was built by Marina, but it was while we were both at university. So the conference started while we were both studying, and it formed part of my university course, and Marina got involved with it too. But this was put together very, very quickly and is not representative of the decisions we would make today, even without the talk that Natalia gave. But I think it's important to take any lessons we can from it and use this as an exercise. So why is it 98% bigger? So when we dive over to Page Speed Insights, which is a tool from Google which measures the performance of websites. And if I'm honest, this result kind of has undermined the value of this tool for me. We can see it actually gets a score of 95 on mobile, which is really, really good. But when you dive into it, you realise that the website is actually 19 megabytes in size. And now it's going to be a reasonable size because of the amount of images we have, but 19 megabytes is a lot. There's also some JavaScript loaded, which I'm not sure if we actually need. If you want to dive into it even more, webpagetest.org is a much more comprehensive tool for measuring performance, and you can see that we are very image heavy, and that's understandable because we had a lot of images. So what can we do to put this right? So we've got this website, we've got it loaded up in code, and the first thing to do is to check to see whether we're using all of the libraries that we are, because if we're not using a library, we can remove it, and then that's one less thing that needs to be loaded. So I notice here in the libraries folder we've got something called clamp.js, and clamp.js cuts off content if it's too long for a containing box. And it's not a load of JavaScript, but it is JavaScript that needs to be downloaded. It's an extra request, it's an extra chunk of parsing. It wouldn't block the rendering of the page, but it could cause us, well, if it's something we don't need, we shouldn't use it. So diving into main.js, we can see here that we are creating a list of modules, and then we're iterating over the modules and then clamping them. Given that clamp is actually is commented out, I'm not sure that this is doing anything, but we can check. So here, this is the tag we're going through the site and looking for. So if we do a quick search, we can see that the only reference to clamp this module is actually here, which means we're not actually using it anywhere in the website anymore. Now, from memory, we were in the first iteration of this website, but we're not now. So we can remove that. So that's one less thing that we're loading. We then go to index.html, and I think I deleted it. Yep, so we can delete that there. See, it was loaded asynchronously, which is good, but some of that doesn't need to be loaded. And then we can remove it from the project overall. So move that to trash, jobs are good, and then let's commit that. So remove clamp. We can always add it back in if we need it. So what's next? Let's have a look at the images. So the images on the website, there are a hell of a lot of them. Arguably they are all needed. Now you can see here that the images for the community supporters are lazy loaded, which is good. The sponsor logos are lazy loaded, and they don't have sizes on them because they're all variable and they're quite low in the page, so I'm not too worried about reflow. But here we can see that the speaker headshots are not. Okay. So the headshots are not. So we can add lazy loading to those, and then they don't get loaded until the user scrolls down the page, which might not make too much of a difference on our metrics, but it will affect the end user. So if we, so you can see every image finishes with headshot, and if we go over to If we go over to the website and we do a quick inspect of this, let's get them full size. Okay, so that's as big as they're going to be. When we do an inspect of that, we can see that the largest that they are is 219 by 219. Okay, so I'm just going to make a note of that. Times 219. Okay, so we know we can optimize those at some point, but here we can add lazy loading into this. Where am I? So we'll search for anything with a headshot. Oh. Awesome. And then if we replace it with headshot, loading equals lazy, and then we need to give it a height. So you can do this without adding a height, but the height and width helps prevent reflow. So we know that it's 219 pixels, and width equals 219 px. Okay. Okay, so now we've got lazy loading images. Let's just quickly flip through and check that it's not missed any. Okay, we'll come back to that. Cool. Loading lazy, loading lazy. Cool. So I think we kind of got them all there. Right. So it looks like all of our speaker images are lazy loaded. I'm just scanning through and checking that the sponsors stuff is also done. Cool. Okay, so we've got lazy loading images now. How easy was that? Okay, so that's got to Netlify. It will be deploying right now. So let's have a look at deploys. Cool. So let's run. Let's just check that that's gone through to live properly. What console errors have we got? Okay, so there, it's giving us the warning that some of the images aren't actually loaded with lazy. If we go to network, hit refresh. So you can see here it's loaded up quite a good chunk of stuff. But you'll see that when we scroll down the page, more images are loaded. Okay, and they're loading when they get to a point. Now, why has that gone messed up? Let's just check we're doing that the right way for lazy. Okay, so it looks like that should have been. I'm sure Ed will appreciate slimming down. Oh. There. Okay, so we need to add height auto to the speaker image. Right, so if we just go and put that one right, so if we just search for height width. Cool. We'll amend that commit. So we do terminal. So here we're using the HTT rack, which is the tool I used to download the website. Used has just got the dist version of the CSS rather than what was that thing? So it's got the dist version rather than the actual SAS files that this was all compiled from. Speaker underscore photo image. Was it height auto? And then we should see that when we reload our local version, yeah, so the images are playing nice again. Okay, so let's do that. And we'll just amend that commit. We'll do a force push. Cool, and then we'll go and trigger another deploy. Deploy site. Awesome. So that's deployed now. So when we reload that, all is good. And then if we run this again, test another page. And we'll also do the page speed insights one again. So it's not actually made a difference to this metric, but it will make a huge difference to the end user who's viewing that website. And this is more reflected in this score, which is bumped up ever so slightly. Okay. And now you can see that when the page is loaded, it's now only loading 4 megabytes instead of 20 on the first page load, which is really, really good. So no improvement in the metric, but we have got an improvement in terms of end user, and end user should always be your primary concern. Okay, so next up, what have we got? So when we go back to our code, so these images are actually much bigger than they need to be. Okay, and that is going to be a super easy win. So if we have a look at speakers, let's just use Amy Knight. It is huge, and as you can see, so you can see down here, that's 360 kilobytes. But in terms of it being on the actual web page, it's only ever displayed at a maximum size of that, which is 219 wide. But the natural size of the image is 800. Now for 2x screens, so things like retina displays and things like that, you need to have images twice as big so that they are nice and sharp. But this is something that we can really quickly improve. I wonder if there's a tool. Let's see. So we've got images. Let's try our speakers. So what do we say? 219. So we want 438. See if we can find a tool which will do it. Okay, so this is just going to resize them. Okay, so I'm going to do this via a little gulp script. Well, actually, let's complete this. We can resize these. 400 is close enough to what we were looking for. So if we look at Amy Knight, for example, so these are the downloaded files, these are the ones we uploaded. So Amy Knight, for example, was 369 kilobytes, and now go down to 138. So some of them, like from 600. Let's find a big one. So 681 for Ellie, down to 180. So it's a third of the size. So our 20 megabyte image size has already dropped down to 8. Now I wonder whether we could do something a little bit better with Gulp. So if we CD future sync. In it. So I'm skipping over all of these for now. Yep. And then we're going to go into package JSON. Let me just get some information from another project. So we're going to use a very specific version of Gulp because I know I've got a library which can just be dropped in 3.91 dependencies. Gulp, and then we need bang this out to another screen. Image min. So I'm putting these just in as normal dependencies. These really would be dev dependencies. So if we do gulp, is it gulp file.js? And then we build up our gulp task. We've got images. So the reason I'm looking off screen is I've got a whole bunch of Gulp scripts that I kind of drop into different projects. Gulp load plugins. So I'm just copying and pasting this for speed, essentially. Okay. And then I think that should be all we need for this. Okay, so let's run npm install. And let's get the documentation of gulp image min and ping. Need another library. Another library, so got responsive. So Git ignore because Git's going nuts because it's trying to track the whole yeah, it's currently trying to track the whole modules. Just not what you want. So we'll do npm install again, just because I need that responsive one as well. So what this script is going to do is, first of all, we're going to resize the images. So in directory path. So this is the in directory path for when we're using Netlify, and generally this would be done at build time, but for now we're not going to. We're just going to say that the path is images / speakers .png. Okay, and the width we want them to be is, what did we say, 218 times 2, 438, wasn't it? 438. We don't need a suffix. We don't need to rename them at all. With metadata false, progressive true, quality 85. We'll remove that. And then image mint is where we do the optimization of the pings. Do we need to do OptiPing? Okay. And then out path, we'll do images / speakers / optimize, just so we can keep the originals to have a look at for now. We can run that by going gulp image. Available images do not match the following config. I wonder if we can just do images. Okay, so it's not that bit, it's that bit. So was it images, speakers, optimization? Sized PNG. Yes. So I was left in the glob pattern basically. Okay, so if we have a look back at our folders, if we go into the optimized, so let's look at LE681 290. Now we know we can get it down more. So what we'll do is if we will change that gulp script to make it just a flat 400. We don't need to do any renaming. And then if we go back to image min, so pings get optimized between 0 and 9, 9 being the best, 0 being the worst. Now we want to keep it looking fairly good, so if we do 6, and we go into this is the optimized. And then we will run that again. It's actually gone up. So the image size has actually gone up. But this is how you would do it as part of a build process. Okay, so you'd put this kind of stuff in, and then these would all get compiled on build. For now and for speed, I'm just going to use the ones we downloaded from online. So let me find a window, downloads. And then if we get out of here, we can delete that optimized folder. I wonder what would happen if we went to JPEGs actually. Let's do JPEG. Just to see. We got rid of that, didn't we? So let's do that one more time. So we've changed everything to JPEG. Should we go with that? Yeah, let's go with that. So all delete, move to bin. Okay, now we need to go through everything here. Can we use a glob pattern? Can I be asked to write a regex? No, I'm just going to go through and change them by hand. So this is what we're changing. Let's just see if they're not in the same order on there. No. Okay. I think is it shift? No, it's alt. I'm just going to do it one by one. You having fun watching along with my copy and paste? Cool. Right, let's load up our page and see if it still works. No, but that is because everything's got a thumb appended to the end of it. So if we run that gulp script again and removing the suffix. We delete the pings. That should work now. Yeah. Cool. So now we've got those images. Yeah. Alright. Cool. So we know what we're doing now. So if we do move to bin. Oh, need more coffee. Cool. So all copy, and then we go all to bin. That should be empty. course they don't have backgrounds, do they? Design decisions, eh? So we will use the ones we downloaded from that website just for speed here, because I think we get the point, don't we? So move to bin. Always there. And we'll just go through and Control Z our way out of this. Cool. So not quite as optimized as it could be, but design decisions are design decisions. Okay, so if we push that, and I think that with that we should see quite a dramatic reduction. Let's go up to GitHub. Let's build in. Okay, so build in, and then we do this. So what I'm just going to quickly do is skim through all of the speakers and sponsors and just check. Okay, so that's big. So we can open with GIMP, just because it's a one-off. We'll see how big this is. How big do these get displayed on the website? So 137, so if we say 150 to be careful, we can actually scale image down to okay, so we knock that down to 52 kilobytes. Is that where we just were? Logo. On there, that's really oversized. Don't even think we really use those. Cool. So that's that one. I'm sure if we sat down and looked, we could go through each of those images and save another 10 kilobytes off each one. And if this was going to be the production website, I probably would sit down. Well, I definitely would sit down and do that. Push. Okay, so we can rerun this. So we're at 98% already, and we know we've made some improvements to user experience already. Let's see if we've made any difference to this metric. I do wonder how much CO2 has been generated. Oh, URL. I wonder how much CO2 has been generated just by us checking this website. How can that be? think it caches the entry. I wonder if we do new incognito window. Definitely, if we've reduced the page size, yeah, it's cached. It's definitely cached. Let's do page speed insights and have a look. So we started out at 19 megabytes. We've got it down to 3.5 just by adding lazy load images. Let's come down. Okay. Once you come down. So we're not going to worry too much about that right now. Properly sized images, we're going to leave that as it is because there's reasons for it. So what I would do normally, so if we were going to do this properly, we could have a very small script which swaps out images depending upon what screen is in use. So if it's a high resolution screen, you show a high resolution image. But for this purpose, we're just going to leave it where it is. Although we are gaming a metric, so maybe we should. No, we'll leave it as it is, but we just know that there are some more savings to be had there. So when we look at the web page, you can see that there's a background image on this. Okay, background image there, background image there, and they are different background images. Okay, now these are in the background folders, and we've got 3 of them. And when we look at the sizes, we can see that they're 270, 287, 416. Now these are huge images that are being served to everybody regardless of what kind of screen they're on. Now obviously you need a much different sized image if you're on this screen than if you are on this screen. Okay. Now if we get an example of it now. Image class fit image. So let's see what fit image is. so some transforms and some translates. So we can do background images slightly differently. So I'm just looking for a snippet of code from another project. So this is from a SAS file, but here on another project, what I do is I serve up a different sized image depending upon what size screen there is. So our breakpoints are 992. Let's do a control find for medium. 514. Seven, 6, 8. 7, 6, 7. 1, 1, 2, 9, 9 px. Yeah, I think chances are that's all of them. Okay, so if we change these to be at media, and we've only got 4. So min width, so we start at 0. Next one, min width 540. Min width 768. Min width 992. Min width 1299. So here we know that if the screen size is below 540 pixels, this media query will be hit. Yeah. If it's below 768, this one's going to be hit. So let's say our screen size is 600. So if our screen size is 600, this is the one that's going to be done, going to be served up. And we make an image which is that wide, so that it's always wide enough, but gets stretched as much as is needed. Okay. So we can do this via gulp again. We'll come back to that in a second. Gulp file. Okay, split that right. Get rid of that for a minute, we don't need it. Just close down anything we don't need here. 64. So here the width will be 540. Here the width will be 768. Here the width will be 992. Here the width will be 1299. And then let's just see how big those images are. 1920. Okay, and then we give them a suffix so that we can target each one. We make them JPEGs, we optimize the quality, pop them into image mint, and then the out path. So here the path input is images, backgrounds. And they are all JPEG, so we don't need to use a glob file pattern. And then we can output them to the same folder because they're all going to be suffixed. Okay, so now if we do header image, cool, we can now see that we've got a whole bunch of files here. And if we look, let's say we're on a mobile phone, we'll now be served a 34 kilobyte image instead of a 270 kilobyte image, which is, you know, a lot. And 3/4 of a megabyte between the three images, give or take, on different screen sizes. I wonder, has it done? Even that's been optimized. Okay, so we've got 3 different images on that page, which means we need dot background 1. Background 3. And this goes into here. And the path is /images/ background / uni. Okay. So I'm going to change that to be. I'm changing these to match the names of the files because it'll make it easier in a second. So 346. Oh. Just clean that up a little bit. Don't need them anymore. So that's access, SM. Cool. So we've got background image there now. And when we have a look at this, let's just see where is there any CSS div gradient overlay? Cool. All right. Yeah, looks like that's good. So background 3, background 4, background 5. So here we can change. Okay, so we haven't actually got that overlay in, which means we need oh no, we have div overlay gradient black. I wonder, can we just put background 4? See what happens with that. No image displayed. To be honest, it looks alright without the image. And let's have a look. Let's see what's happening here. Did I save? I'll save that. Maybe that would help. No. Let's have a look. So background 4. So the background's being overlaid by that. Is that showing an image? No. Is that to a file? console. Yeah, file not found. So images, backgrounds, Plim Uni 3. Images. Do we not need that slash? So if we go background, and look at our console images. So that image is there, but I think because we've got a slash in it, it's not working. So if we just go back, refresh elements, cut out our backgrounds. Okay. It's looking at it from the dist folder. So do we need to do dot. Cool, my doorbell's just gone, so I'll be back in a second. Okay, so I've got background image. We know they're showing up properly now, so now we've got to re-architect the CSS. Or rewrite, not re-architect. So if we give bugger all that off. I'm going to do image background. So that will put our background there. And then we'll go and get our background image color. The background is a linear gradient. Not a very smooth linear gradient, but a linear gradient nonetheless. Now hopefully when we reload that, after we save everything. Oh, well, that worked a charm, didn't it? So it is loading the background image. I don't know whether it's the position, absolute, relative. So why is that not showing up? Okay. Needs the height. I think whatever our hero is. that's funky. Forgot a comma. So visually it looks pretty much the same, but when we look at our network we can see that as we need to go and do that for all of them, don't we? So let me just go dot. So now if we reload, we're watching it on the network and we should be able to see different sized images get loaded up at different screen sizes. And that means that people on small screens are getting the right image for their screen size. So we can delete that. And then anywhere where one of those images is, we just replace with that. And we also don't need an overlay gradient as well. Thinking about it. So that's going to change, isn't it? Yeah, so we need to change that overlay gradient. I should say this isn't the way I'd normally write. What's that? And I'll go to the live website to find out what that is. So I wonder if I just said elements inspect background 3 and number 4. That's quite nice actually. Nope. So that's our gradient. The white imagey ones. No. Okay, so now when I save that, reload, we should see no visual changes. That one needs looking at. Gradient's not come through, is it? White overlay. Image background, white overlay. Ah, it's the before. That's it. There we go. So we've got a much better way of serving images now, which is more optimized for different size screens. Resize background images, cool. So let's okay, and then if we look at this, so just wait for that to deploy. Okay, so if we look here, total requests down to 2 megabytes now on mobile. But if we run another analysis, we should see that drop ever so slightly. Should. Okay, so we've just knocked a megabyte off those 3 images alone. So we've taken this site down from 20 megabytes on load to 1 to 1.1 megabyte on load. So what next? So as you've seen, as I've been dotting about, there's lots of commented out stuff, so we can get rid of that because we don't need it. It all adds up, eh? We're no longer looking at megabytes, we're looking at kilobytes, or in this case bytes. This could be a blocking script, so I think we can move that to the end of the document rather than the beginning. It's worth noting that we've already swapped out Google Analytics for Miniature Analytics, which knocked already 100 odd kilobytes off. So that'll speed up page load. Right, okay. So what we're going to do now is have a quick look at our CSS files. So I'm going to find any unused CSS. Okay, so we can definitely get rid of fit image now. Have we got any pre? So we don't have any of those tags. We don't have any of those. Any of those. So I would typically, so I've already gone in and put the MailChimp, which was an external style sheet, and made it internal. And that is one of the changes we did before we started. Normally I would only load that on the pages that is needed. Looks like all of that is duplicated. So form H2 input button small matter. Overridden, I guess. So we don't have any overlays anymore, do we? Oh yeah, we need to go and do so all this overlay code's no longer needed, but we need to go and add the background images to the other pages as well. It's a light overlay. I'm just going to remove that one entirely. So obviously all of that would be pre-compiled. That would be compiled at build time, but we're not building a deployment pipeline here. purple. Get rid of those. This impression should have been purple. Cool. So that's those added. Let's go find my overlay code. So like that never actually gets applied because it's already applied. Should we delete that? Hover one pixel. Okay, so let's just check that this is all saved, and then we can have a look at our local site. Check that it's all still coloured and backgrounded and all that kind of stuff. That needs to change to white. Doesn't let me change to dark. Okay, so that is the background images optimized. Okay, next we've got one last thing before we kind of wrap up here, and that is that CSS file. Now, in the original project, this is a CSS file that is compiled whenever changes are made, and then so not at build time, but whenever a big change is made, the CSS is recompiled, and that's that. I'm not sure how it gets compiled in terms of what happens to it, but looking at the output, like when I'm seeing this, this is not it's not what I'd expect to see from optimized CSS. So namely that we got MailChimp down here and MailChimp up here. So now I know that overriding styles, but there's some stuff we can do to reduce the size of the CSS. So at the moment we're looking at 2,231 lines of well-structured CSS. What we can do is we can use another gulp build script to optimize that to some extent. So I do in this gulp file, we're going to add some CSS stuff. We're not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm just cleaning this up so it's a bit clearer to look at. Okay, and then we get our package.json. No, not manifest, package. And then we'll just copy over the bits we need from this other package. So what are we using here? Gulp prefix. Don't clean CSS. Gulp rename. Do we need Sass? We're not actually compiling Sass, are we? So I'll get rid of Sass. Gulp auto prefix. Okay, so it will sort out all the auto prefixes for us. So let's try and run npm install. And then if we run that, assuming we don't get any errors, read only process. So it's trying to read from the base folder. Okay, so we've got a meaty size thing there, but when we beautify it, we actually removed a few. But has it compiled down? MailChimp stuff is what I'm interested in. Well, anyway, it's reduced a little bit, and a little bit makes a difference. It's probably just that it's removed stuff. Cool. So we'll leave it there, but that same thing can be used, clean CSS can be used to reduce the amount of stuff in it. Just as one quick thing, I wonder if we did remove the compatibility and run it again, if we'd get any difference. Cool. So let's quickly change that just on the home page, because that's the one we're looking at. And just do compile CSS. So I would normally sit down and go through every single rule of that style sheet and see if they're actually being used, just because there's been so many changes to this project over time. Do it. So we'll let that go through the build process, and I'm going to show you a super neat thing that we can do using Netlify. So that's published now. So if we run our analysis again, if we can get it to below 1 megabyte, that would be brilliant. It's going to come back as a slow one. So close. So we've got it down to, where are we at? 1172 KB from 18 odd at the beginning. Netlify comes with a whole bunch of stuff. Deploy settings comes with a whole bunch of stuff with it, which makes optimizing websites super easy. So we can do asset optimization. So we don't need to pretty URLs. So I think they are. No, let's pretty the URLs. Bundle, minify, and compress images, all for free at the click of a button. And that's quite nice. So we've put that on now. We just need to trigger a deploy. So these are going through lossless image compression right now. It's minified to JavaScript, process that, minified CSS. I'm pretty sure it will minify HTML as well. The site is live. Do that again. Sometimes shortly after the build it goes slow, just while it's sorting itself out. Yeah, that's better. So we're down to 11272. So we've lost even more, which is good. I'll tell you what, I'm going to remove that Facebook thing just so we can get it down. All right. Push that. Let that deploy, and then we can run our last one. So with the CSS, we could go so much further than that. We could split out the critical CSS and add that in. And add that into the header of each page. For small sites, kind of, if the CSS is generally under 6 kilobytes, I would just tend to inline the whole lot. It saves a little bit of time on the download. Cool. So we're trying to get this down to below a megabyte. 973 kilobytes. Get on. Cool. There is so much more we could do. So we could do some stuff with the CSS to make it even more slimline and possibly inline it. I think if we spent a little bit of time, we could remove jQuery. I think with a little bit of work, we could probably work around having these fonts fonts loaded. It's definitely we'd definitely be able to reduce some of the reflow of the page. I think if we really wanted to, we could get the image sizes down even more, but that would cause problems for users on 2x screens. So I'm quite happy with that. We've gone from effectively 19 megabytes down to less than 1 megabyte on page load for a mobile user, and down to 2.5 megabytes on desktop for initial load from a page user. So the question is, can we get an updated score from this? No, but I wonder if I change this. I'll just change the URL and we'll actually see whether this caches. Was better. I do think if we minified those images a bit more, it would be it. But this kind of stuff is premature. Well, it's not premature optimization, but it's a bit more than we need. All right, I'm going to love you and leave you at that. It's time for lunch for me. Thank you very much for tuning in. Do check out the blog post that will accompany this. It'll probably be a lot easier to get through rather than watching 2 hours and 15 minutes of me optimizing websites. Enjoy whatever you're doing later. Ciao.